Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the OGA Pit Close Qualifiers, of course, for our minor that's taking place in December. Welcome, I'm Demo, this is Fluke, and ready to go with North America for the first time here in the tournament.
Yeah, it's the first NA play day. Obviously, we've seen 2 LATAMs and 1 EU, and it's been, well, I think mixed matches is the fairest way of putting it. Now, I could be wrong on this. I saw Reddit discussing it. During yesterday's play day was the first ever 14-0 in the history of Rainbow Six competitive. It's never been done or recorded before, and that's the sign of how a lot of these play days are going. But I guess we'll see if that can continue. The first game of the night is going to be SSG versus Atheris Esports. So that is a big Mexican team versus obviously a big American team. Akatsuki versus Adventure Force, the Challenger League playoffs that are going to happen. And then Rogue versus Okami for the third game of the night. All of these are best of 3s. So a lot of these teams you might have only really seen in best of 1. Some you might not have ever seen at all. But let's see if they can go the distance this time.
So we have 2 Pro League teams playing tonight. SSG will be first up, and then also Rogue will be our third match. And of course, we do have the kind of clash of the Tier 2s going at it. And, you know, you look at the kind of Pro League teams playing here tonight. Both of them have struggled heavily in best of 1s. That's why Rogue's up for relegation. Best of 3s, on the other hand, is a different story for them.
Exactly. So I guess we can see if this is a, position where they can find their way back to the big table. Obviously, at the end of this, the big old prize pool, outside of the prize pool, and getting a trip to
the big prize pool, outside of the prize pool, yes.
Outside of the prize pool is the chance to go to the major at the end of that. And that is going to be settled, not quite yet, but at the early week of December, where they have 8 teams going against each other in Croatia for the minor. But first game, SSG versus Atheris Esports. Now, obviously, one of these teams I'm assuming a lot of you guys are very familiar with out there.
You should be familiar with Space Station at this stage. If you haven't, well, where have you been? They're really the only North American team who's done anything at the major. Wow. Well, besides TSM, but I like TSM. Other major teams, maybe not so much.
Well, I guess we'll see if they can keep the roll going. For those who are unaware of the only Mexican team that have made it through to the closed qualifiers, Atheris Esports came second, or currently sat second in the Mexican League. They've had a pretty good season across there, but they are trailing by 10 points and they still have the finals. But we'll
just fix that for me.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
You know I don't like that.
No, I know. But we'll jump into the map bands. We'll see where we are going to go for this. Now, obviously, as I said, SSG, you would expect them to be able to take this, theoretically. If statistics, which you know I enjoy, are to be believed, that's where this game is probably going to swing.
Oh, if this had graffiti, it would say SSG win all over it, and there's no real way I can see that going apart from that storyline. It has to be SSG winning this. There's no way to put it around, Fluke. Well, we just cannot expect a team who isn't, in the greatest competitive, league, which is open to them. SSG, they have the Pro League. They've went to majors. The fairest, sure, they are doing well in their own national league, but we've seen before national leagues mean really nothing whenever you're going against big giants.
Well, I guess we'll see where they decide to take the fight, and I think from this point it's down to Atheris to decide where they don't want to go. Bank is the first one off from their side. Weirdly and historically, Clubhouse has been one of their best kind of plays maps. They're probably going to want to angle there, and Border's another one that's been okay for them. And that's a good map for teams to take bigger teams on, because the tactics are so driven into the ground that it becomes, a little bit standard. SSG, they enjoy Clubhouse as well, so assume they want to swing there, but at this point, as we said, they're kind of the big dogs here. Their spaceship is vast and large, and I think it's kind of saying, well, where do you want us to land? Because we are happy to invade everywhere from our spaceship.
Wow, it's a great analogy.
I just like spaceships.
They just land anywhere. They will conquer the known universe.
Apart from Italy. They don't want to go to Italy.
They don't want to go to Tuscany.
Villa is off the board.
I think Club's kind of given in this series. I expect either team to really pick it here. Who's it's going to be, I don't really know. I think Border could also be thrown into the pot. You look at SSG, they beat Team Reciprocity on it, which is always kind of something that they can have at their sleeve.
Well, that's the thing. As we said, SSG, they're one of those teams they're good in these best-of-3 stages. They were top of the group at Montreal, top of the group at Rally, and then things start to fall apart. They haven't had the best form recently, but in these long-form fights, they've had a pretty good history. And again, I think it shows the depth of maps that they can really kind of play on.
Well, SSG, they're kind of in the form of kind of rebuilding their entire setup that they have going for them. Of course, that addition of Canadian moving over not too long ago, it's still taking time to get there. We didn't see, immediate result from Canadian being added to the roster during Montreal. We didn't really, we didn't really see it in Pro League either. There was some losses there. They took a loss to Sonics, which was a massive upset in many eyes. And I still feel that Canadian, he needs a little bit more time to really synchronize well with this team.
Well, Clubhouse is the one taken by Atheris. As we said, they're good on it, but at the same time, so are SSG. So I guess they're going to play to their comforts, and they're going to see how well they can battle up against a Titanic team like Space Station. And as I said, at this point, Space Station just really have to look at what they want to play. I would be surprised if they wanted to go to Border. I would kind of, in a way, be surprised if they wanted to go to Cafe. It's still quite aggressive, but at the same time, that could, it's one that they've had myriad of results on, I think it's fair to say.
Console's a good map as well. It kind of feels as if it favors teams who have been together for a really long time. They have great coordination, and it just kind of allows your team to know exactly what you're thinking, because Console isn't an overly stratted map. It's very simple and basic, but you need great team communication in terms of the roam clear, which we know can be very potent, and even just taking areas of the map. You need a full strength army to really take control of some areas.
Well, they're actually going to opt to go to Border, so they're going to try and bring the fight there and rely on fragging. And, as I said, I'm a bit surprised by that. If I'm honest, I think that's going to play a little bit better to Atheris' game, because it's well known, it's familiar, it's not in a real sense formidable. It's just a place to kind of go and click heads sometimes.
Yeah, and you're saying if they're there to click heads, there's a Rampy in the other team.
That's true. There is always a Rampy. And he's a nightmare to have your head clicked upon. Coastline is what they're going to take out of the equation, and this leaves Atheris the choice between Cafe and Consulate.
I don't see Cafe being picked.
It would be a fool's errand to go to Cafe against SSG, but again, it's down to what Atheris have in their wheelhouse. They've played okay on Cafe. They don't have the worst history on it, so I think they have a better history on that than they do on Consular across the Campeonato Mexicano. But I guess it's down to, is that a dragon? I'm trying to work out.
Is that a dragon? I think it's a snake.
Oh, well, it could be a dragon, because then
So
it's like a
see the cafe.
space fight. Yeah, so as I said, they haven't had the worst history on it. Again, I think it's a bit of a peculiar choice, because you've always got to think who you're picking it up against. You're going against SSG, you're going against the major team, you're going against the team that has Rampy, has the ability to have this aggressive frag style, and, at this point, Cafe kind of plays quite nicely into that.
In the long run, I don't honestly think we're going to see a third map. I kind of feel as if they've already sealed themselves in the coffin, ready to be buried by SSG. First of all, Club, which we know is a great map for SSG, and then Border on top of that has been another one that they've had some good success in.
Yeah, it's just a comfortable kind of place for SSG, I think. And they can look at this as not a warm-up game, but one to find themselves getting their feet. As we said, they're very good on the offset of this kind of stuff. They're very good in qualifiers, very good in the opening. And then when it kind of gets to the land stage and the more tense games, things start to fall apart, unfortunately. But obviously, they've got this as their opening, and then they're playing whoever wins the Challenger League showdown right after. So that'll be how they segue in. But we might as well start ourselves somewhere. NA, first map, first game, SSG versus Atheris. Let's get into it, shall we?
Club is where we go first off. And we've seen some pretty common club picks from really across all regions so far, and the bans have been pretty similar, especially if you look at LATAM, where we've, again, had 2 play days of this. We haven't had any NA, so it's kind of a fresh, slight forest look to kind of look at it. And generally, the gist has been Thatcher Habana bans has been the craze.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to kind of compare regions, especially when you're not as familiar with them as you are with other regions. Obviously, we spend 19% of our time with EU, and then we get a chance to kind of see LATAM for a couple of days.
How much NA have you casted?
I couldn't tell you the last time I casted a huge amount of NA. It would have been Allied minor stuff around that time when we were out in Hamburg with Hap and Sternab. And we saw SSG back then as well. And again, killed qualifiers. Very comfortable, very confident. It wasn't really like the EU side of the bracket where it was still pretty bitterly fought. They were storming through. But Blackbeard is the second removal there, taken out by Atheris. And that's a particular ban, I think.
If only SSG could have killed Allied, unlike the qualifiers.
Well, as we said, they struggle sometimes when it starts to heat up, unfortunately, and I guess this will be a great opportunity for them to, I guess, see if they can make some groundwork. Obviously, if we look at other teams that have found their way to bigger tournaments from the minors, especially on the kind of European continent, we don't have to look much further than one of the other games this evening, Rogue, who had a very, very good showing previously this year. Valkyrie and Echo, the next two to be taken off and bring this back to a bit of a balance as we go into the first round. SSG starting on the defense, and again, I think that's going to play a bit more into their favor here as we opt for the Church as the first go-to.
I'm terrified for defenders. I know that we talk about Clubhouse being a very defense-sided map. You look at those bans. Sure, Capital's off the board, which is an extremely powerful operator where you can clear pesky positions that it's difficult to deal with. You, of course, have the added bonus of the smoke and, great solid kit, flashbangs, great gun, free speed, can play as that entry if you need it. But looking at the Blackbeard ban, that's not really going to impact anything in my eyes.
That's the thing.
Where's the hard breach?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what Atheris was thinking there. It's a very... Because, whenever you see a ban like that come out, you've got to try and think, okay, well, where are they imagining this Blackbeard to play? What holds and what points and what positions are ones where Blackbeard can reasonably find themselves in a good semblance of control? And if they're not looking at that, then are they looking at what can be the playstyle of a Blackbeard? Are they just the best head clickers in all of Mexico, and Blackbeard is what breaks that up for them? Okay, fine. But the width and the depth and the tunnels and the systematic room construction of Clubhouse just means that there's nowhere really for me to see a Blackbeard kind of shining on either of those boxes.
Straight off the rip, basement defense instead will be held as if it's going to be a mid-floor. So essentially for this, you are opening up the Moral Hatch to give yourself a great rotate in the site. You're specifically trying to waste time and utility away from the attackers. That's why you hold the mid-floor. You have the hatches open if, they try and rush site, which could actually be opened up here for the Thatcher and Co. whenever they're looking to try and push in towards the dirt and down main stairs potentially. Then it gives you that easy rotation back to site. Looks as if they're going to be trying to play 4 off-site. Actually, no, the castles went back down, and straight away, Vigil over towards Strip. Canadian, he's already bit the bullet, and now they have no control on bar, and they only have the 2 roamers upstairs. So this is a bad start for Space Station.
Yeah, but a great start for Atheris being able to just hold what is a pretty standard hold. You think Canadian might have maybe just been a little bit overzealous in the rotation, concerned about the hold above, trying to make sure that no one is in logistics messing them around, but a great impact trick stops the first set of X-Kairos actually popping off. You could see the pressure they were putting on Dirt originally to try and make their way across, but Bosco brings it back to a 4-4, and that is just that hold against Dirt. As we said, they cracked their way open, chugged their way along, and unfortunately met the end of the line. And Bosco, who is already pre-firing the second body inside, but with Diffuser cold and waiting for anyone to try and double up, they've put themselves in a little bit of a dead end, and they're going to have to very quickly start to apply pressure, or try and get it out of there, or just frag their way across. Kef with a brilliant frag grenade from deep hits the man behind the third box, and yet again puts Atheris into a one-man advantage.
The only issue I kind of have now with Atheris and their setup is, yes, they're trying to push in towards dirt. They know there's a mid-floor kind of hold, so they're like, yeah, let's sack that off. Let's force their way into dirt. But you have to take control of the kitchen to buck above faults. You cannot let him sit here, because he can... Look at this. Clear as day angle. If anybody wants to rush in through, it's going to be a piece of cake for him. And the fact that the Buck is trying to entry rather than being upstairs and using the utility, you're bringing the Buck. Use his gadget. He hasn't used any skeleton keys. This makes no sense.
saving it for the rush at the end as they look at the final 45 seconds, and you can see SSG are well aware of where the diffuser is, but it seems like they're just going to go for the body push and thinking Nade is going to find the first, and there is Faults to get the second, dropped from the crossfire there across the corridor, and now it's just down to one player of Atheris left. Skimzy against two of SSG, trying to get the diffuser down. They will have heard that. They still have, well, a lot of attention, but no, there is the C4, ripped, torn and blown, misses it. They spray fire, but they are met with a lot of their own as SSG take the first round with a plant and a defuse.
Yeah, simple enough for SSG. Again, Ferris, you're bringing utility, but you're not utilizing it to the best of your ability. If you're bringing the Buck, automatically the only kind of say that Buck has on the basement is kitchen. That's the sole job that he has, is to eliminate anybody in there. That's all he does. There's nothing else destructible in terms of verticality. There's nothing for him.
Well, the second round, we're going to see where they want to swing to. CCTV is actually the top point. As we saw, it was a very aggressive hold, generally, from SSG. They set themselves up on the top floor, watched through big holes down below, and were able to kind of pick apart Atheris before they really managed to find anything. Apart from Canadian, who rotated and got caught out very early.
Oh, Canadian's gone.
So we're going to have to go to a rehost almost instantly, unfortunately. So we'll quickly pop back to cameras. Maybe he's just going to rethink his approach to running out in the open.
Yeah, I have to quickly check the book to see how to play Vigil again. He must have forgotten.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate death. But again, I think what we could see there from SSG is probably what's going to be trademark of the entire day. They were so quick to respond to what was being brought from them. And Atheris, as you said and rightfully questioned, weren't really using utility much.
Yeah, if you're going to force your way into a one-way system, it's just going to stack up. And you've seen Faults had an easy job of killing the Hibana as she walked in. And it's just something that Atheris need to get out of their system quick, like a bad cold. Just get rid of it. And the only way you can do that is just by sweating it out, and eventually it goes away. And I think for Atheris, if you're bringing a lot of utility, take your time with things. You know, they're already trying to get into the bomb site by like a minute 30. It's Clubhouse. Yeah. That's not the way it plays out.
And that's the thing. And you kind of look at what else had fallen apart. And obviously they managed to get Dirt open with the Thermite very quickly. And then Thermite tried to entry frag his way through and was quickly shut down. From that point on, we could see Hibana was attempting to get hatches from above and then very kind of quickly changed her mind and rotated off to try and help put pressure in Dirt. And you do wonder how much of a plan A was sacrificed because of the Thermite going down. And at the same time, you know, what was the Hibana trying to achieve in the first place if she gave up that quickly?
Yeah, if you're playing that kind of hard breach, you're supposed to use your utility. You know, what's the point of bringing operators that are just going to waste their stuff? You may as well just bring, you know, like an Ashe and a Twitch, you know, people who are literally designed just to get kills and not so much for the gadget utility. Looking at the kind of mid-floor that SSG kind of developed, losing Canadian very early on, whenever he kind of gets cut out in those positions that he probably wasn't expecting, it means that somebody else has to kind of take control of the position he was playing, and it kind of moves things around, which you can see from SSG. They were quick enough to, you know, Rampy to move down and take Canadian's position in towards the main stairs, and of course was able to rotate back down to help the bomb site. You still in left thinking Nade upstairs to do whatever he was still doing. And I think it's going to be a kind of similar thing that we'll see throughout the course of this, is that SSG are very proficient in kind of taking over where people would fall short of.
I think that was a great thing to see from them as well. As soon as they kind of realized where everything was, SSG held it. They didn't really throw too much of themselves away, and yes, it fell down to trades, but the system they had set up was meant that they were always going to be the man up from how the trades decided to break down. They were generally consistently in control from the moment that Thermite hit the floor. They had eyes, they had sightline, they had everything they wanted, and then it was just Atheris who decided to try and funnel everything through and try and hopscotch over the corpses of their already dead teammates. Let's see if they can find a way to improve that strategy as we jump back in. Now the rehost has been completed to the CCTV on the top floor. Maverick and Thermite currently both on the board. Hibana is often well picked, as we've seen, trying to get control of Garage. You can go quite wide with your control of this point as well. You'll see sometimes split pressure across the Garage side, across the eastern CCTV balcony, and even across logistics wall as well, and construction wall.
Yeah, cache now being opened up. No Maverick. on the side of a Ferris, but I think that they know that even if there's like a Bandit or a Kaid, they can still deal with the classic Hibana Thermite. And whenever I say that, I mean you can basically put one Thermite charge on one side of the wall and then Hibana pelts on the other. And Bandit can only choose one, and Kaid, well, whenever Thatcher's there, Kaid's going to be pretty useless, but they are also still bringing the buck, so they can even get rid of that. I say that, they go ahead and pick it anyway with a sick pick.
Yeah, they've decided they've sick picked off twice now. Last time it was the Hibana. This time they've decided to keep the triple hard destruction and not bring the Ash. Obviously, we've already talked about this point before, and everyone is well aware where Fultz is currently stood. If you are trying to hold on to it via the Bandits or via Kaid, it becomes a hot point because there's so many different angles and positions and ways for teams to try and break you down. If you're looking at attempting to trick it, as well, we'll talk about Bandit first, then you've got to make sure that you still have control underneath. Otherwise, any player half their weight in salt can be able to just find the buck and destroy you, more Zephyr, or anything that includes any mild form of destruction. If you're doing Kaid, you get a little bit of a berth and you can stand a couple of feet away, but even then it does not take much rotation for the player underneath to quickly take care of your Kaid charges and then drop you down. Rampy and Fultz both underneath here, trying to keep the control of the bottom of the wall and make sure those Kaid charges stay intact as they just get all of the information, and I really like what Rampy is feeding back to the rest of the team right now.
Yep, here goes Fultz with the easy frag onto the buck, who was caught sleeping on his drone. And well, that is certainly swung things into an SSG round straight off the rip, and whenever they've lost the buck, the Bandit Kaid combo can be difficult, so it does mean they're going to have to use a little bit more utility. It's not out for a Ferris, they can still use the Hibana and Thermite trick, and of course still have the Maverick there, but Kaid can be a tricky one, of course, to deal with if it does land, but since they know that Fultz was the roaming Kaid who went for the jump out, then he's not going to be in a position to kind of stop that. So that wall's going to be opened up, but I don't think it matters for SSG. They got what they wanted, and that was the opening kill. It sets them up nicely. It kind of puts the Ferris into the back seat of the car now, and SSG, well, they have the keys in the ignition and are ready to go.
Holding on and trying to push forward and find the man on the red stairs, but he wins out the firefight with skill, and that's Fultz bringing himself to the double and just going to keep control of this lounge side with the Pulse still offering all the support they can muster. They've obviously got this CCTV wall open now, and Hibana's trying to crack pressure from the opposite side, but with one of the hard destructions and the diffuser down cold yet again from Canadian finding a body this time, it's just swinging more and more into the favor of SSG. Again, it's a very wide, very deep point, but what SSG did brilliantly there was cover every single entrance, not only with their eyes, but with an unsurmounted amount of aggression. Happy to get 2 jump out kills and 3 bodies before they even get close to the building.
SSG aggressive is what they're trying to stand with, and maybe it just adds into the fact that they know they're going up against a weaker team compared to themselves, who, again, doesn't have the same international experience that SSG does, and I think that kind of plays into your mindset. It's whenever you know you're better than somebody, you're always gonna kind of take them for granted and will do things kind of outside of your comfort zone, and that's exactly what SSG are going for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we briefly mentioned it before. For those who didn't happen to catch our LATAM play day yesterday, the 14-0 that we saw, it was kind of beyond words for what happened. It was a Pro League team versus a Tier 3 team, and it was a mess, I think it's fair to say. I think Valkyrie spent an entire round outside of the building on one round and still managed to get 4 kills out of it.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we're on for one of those again, Fluck.
I kind of like
already
want to see it. It was one of those games that you'll only ever see once in a blue moon or in the early level of qualifiers where not a huge amount of teams sign up to the open qualifiers bracket, and a lot of them get their way through quite early. Now, let's see if they change anything up here. Fultz has brought the castle, and they've got the Kaid and Jaeger, so you would assume they're going to do a bit of a default hold against the Jacuzzi wall with the electronics, but at the same time, SSG, as we said, have already been leaning into the aggression pretty heavily, so there's probably going to be more of that. Curious where the mirrors are going to go from the hands of Bosco. Obviously, it's not commonly seen on this point too much.
It's not even commonly seen on the map. Mira is typically being banned away, but whenever Echo and Valk's off the table, which again can be a deadly combo that really both teams are happy enough playing with, but Mira can be potent, and specifically that buff for Mira, it completely shuts down any chance of a Jacuzzi unless you want to waste the utility to try and go for the Habana pellets, but even at that, Bandit's a thing, and we know a Bandit behind a Mira window is so tough to get past. SSG, they'll extend in towards cash, but not really the more common way that we're used to. Instead, they'll reinforce into the server side of things as well, and really try and hold an aggressive standpoint, even deny access to Catwalk, which is kind of a main beachhead that a lot of teams go for. Bosco just got hit by Electroclaw. He wasn't sure what happened to him there.
I don't even... Yeah, I think that's just Kaid throwing things at Bosco and being a bit irritated. He takes the blow instead, and I don't think Mira's ever going to truly know what happened there. You can see they're rotating back towards the other side as Canadian's getting a bit aggressive underneath Logistics hatch, but trying to keep control of this Mira window that if it does fall can become quite a big problem for their, well, spread control of the point itself. At this point, Atheris are weighing it up. I think even they believe that they got that wall open a little bit too easy on the Jacuzzi side, and they're not used to the ground that they've got, and they know that as soon as they enter, they're just going to be gunned by the Mira, or C4'd, or anything that SSG decide and determine to throw their way. Otherwise, yet again, as we said from the first round, SSG seem pretty comfortable to just hold their angles and wait. They're going to let Atheris fall against them there as the C4 ripped, torn, and ready to go, but I think he's trying to get the 4K and is going to wait till he gets more of an angle, maybe miss through it, just a bit short, unfortunately. Great move from the Zephyr. The frag grenade comes over and does a little bit more damage than a Kaid Claw, but they do find the opening frag against Canadian, who rotated back towards the corridor, and then Buck just hard charges and jumps against Bosco, who finds one and thinking Nade gets two, but they do get the Mira out of her cubbyhole.
Damage has been done though. Mira being able to pick up that single frag onto Buck has alleviated not only utility pressure that Ferris could still, of course, have had in towards this part of the game, but it's just stopped them now. And Finky Nade still on main stairs, covers that angle, and Faults, well, he takes full advantage of the Habana, or should I say Sophia, as Habana's the only one still left up and alive, and main stairs is where she's going to try and push in towards, but like we said, Mute has all the control, and SSG again just holding firm like a rock, and well, they're ready to go as round number 4 awaits us.
They're having a good time with this. I think SSG, they're pretty chill. Nothing's really tested them so much. Obviously, that came down to a 3-1, and the first round came down to a 2-1, but it's ones where they've never really seemed like they have to stress too much. And I guess it's kind of a breakdown of how Atheris seem to formulate their attacks as things come together, because they seem to try and throw everyone through one doorway. They had a habit of it in the very first round. They had a habit of it in there when, obviously, bold call there from Buck to hard charge the Mira to get her out and sacrifice your life for the men behind you. But at the same time, you're all still entering from one route. At that point, you might not know, but you have pulled the man out of Logistics. You've gotten a little bit more space on the backside. Apply some mixed pressure. Alleviate all of your men entering from one hole and just find yourself a little bit more space.
SSG, back down to the basement they go. Mid-floor, I think they're going to go for again with the hole that they have in towards the bar, and let's see if Canadian can not give his life away. So we can actually see the positioning that they were trying to set up, because we didn't get a real clear indication of what they were trying to hold whenever they do lose the vigil very early on. And then we talked about Rampy had to rotate down and try and hold Canadian's position, but I kind of want to see the full setup.
Well, I'm assuming he won't be as aggressive as he was previously. It would be a bit of a fool's errand, but I mean, he has unfortunately, Canadian as of this moment, been the opening death twice out of the 3 rounds, so he's not having the best luck as of yet. They're going with their aggressive top floor hold, as you said, with the shotguns to allow themselves the sights down onto the hatches. And at this point, I'm also curious to see what Atheris kind of change up in terms of their push. They've kept the Habana for this time around Church, and they've also bought a Jackal for the Joy. Gonna see if they can get some of the errant boys on the SSG team under a little bit more of a closed thumb, and they can kind of pincer them off one at a time. Because if there's a way to take advantage of what SSG are doing, it's, well, take advantage of how far apart they are. See if you can set yourself up to get the pincers.
I don't really think the Jackal pings is going to matter that much. If you look at the SSG setup, they're such in close proximity of each other. If somebody does get pinged, it'll just be the fallback, and it kind of lures the attack into the other defenders. They can't really drone out because there is so many mute jammers being scattered around upstairs. And now Finky Nade, he's going to be the first ping. Canadian below him, of course, Rampy over towards construction, so they're all close to each other. They can easily rotate. I think that they do have the pull hatch open as well, so it can give a nice escape in towards Thinking In, which, yes, it is open for him. He knows where one's going to be trying to pinch her, and you can even see, look, Rampy, he's just ready holding the angle if anything does happen to him.
And I think, again, we've already said it a couple of times, the SSG lads, they're just waiting for the pressure to kind of fall across them. They're relaxed, they're not really stressed, and they're happy to eat the time up on this top floor because that's a big thing that they have done. Rampy obviously finds the opening frag, and Atheris have yet again found their way down Dirt Tunnel, but without any control above, it's kind of just a waste of breath without the cover. Bosco's dug inside of blue, holding on from the long angle, and at least the buck is upstairs, but as far as I can tell, he hasn't really done a huge amount of bucking. Sees the man, but misses the shots, and there is the dancing, crouching man that flees as Guicho tries to hunt them down, but I believe they've managed to pull off the rotate and get out of there, have the Moto hatch open and free, and again, just under a minute left, so Atheris really need to start thinking of their push, but with the Jackal off the board, the Buck seriously injured, and zero control on the building, it's probably not going to end well.
And even Rampy, he's came back down to site to assist whenever he knows that all the time's been wasted utility as well, and just have to sit back and relax. Everybody from that top floor hold has came back to site, so it is just going to be a slaughterhouse now, I feel, for SSG, ready to get them as they try and drop in towards the hatches and push down towards the corridor. And once again, SSG just proving that they have the better game sense, the communication seems to be on top, and honestly, Ferris, they just don't know where to go from here. Utility gets popped in, trying to clear out in behind the armory, which should have been cleared a solid minute ago, but they're just trying to do it at this stage. They know nobody's there, but here comes the drop. False does die. But SSG now, they're all grouped up together. The trades come in, and still, it's a free-on-free. Diffuser trying to get planted, but there's the stop, and SSG, they take round number 4, and they're on their way to, looks to be a clean half for them.
Yeah, it's just been pretty par for the course, I think it's fair to say, on the favor of SSG. Everything has kind of fallen into place. Atheris seem to kind of be struggling with the size and the breadth of this map right now that SSG are happy to make full use of. They're taking the top floors on this bottom floor hold, and, you know, it's not the most common way of doing it. It's probably one of the rarer ways of holding the basement, is to throw a lot of your utility and a lot of your players up the top two and then kind of fall back periodically, especially with the castles across the bar as well, just to kind of create more channels and funnels. But at the same time, Atheris seem a little bit stumped. They're expecting everyone to be on the basement floor, and because of that, they're splitting themselves up a little bit too thin and too wide. The one man, maybe sometimes two, enter via the dirt tunnel, and then they stop because they realize there's nowhere else for them to go from this point. If they enter, there's going to be a crossfire. At the same time, the bodies upstairs kind of start to enter on the mid floor and stop because they can't really play around in the kitchen too much as there's still people above. What Atheris need to start looking at is what SSG are doing, not what they expect other teams to do.
Look at the big picture. You have to have a look and see how SSG are setting up shop. The attacks always have to play to the tune that SSG are setting up. They just have to. Whenever you can see them with these mid-floors, that completely changes the overall dynamic. If you think about a basement, you think, okay, we're attacking the basement. Whenever it's a basement defense and you see a mid-floor, you're not thinking, oh, we have to attack mid-floor. Which that means you have to adapt. Your adaptation needs to be on point, and more importantly, your IGL needs to have a lot of focus and get ready to call and be able to see the setup. And SSG, I just think they're taking them for a ride.
Yeah, on a certain kind of vehicle. Still opening up their point architecture here, and they're waiting for some of the pressure. It looked like Atheris actually droned out and realized that the peaks were going to come from Garage, so didn't throw themselves to it, which is actually a good thing because we've seen too many teams just sacrifice themselves to the gods of Pro League teams holding onto angles. Yet again, Atheris are wasting no time getting open that CCTV wall, but again, without a lot of the kind of accountable measurements and balances put in place, things are going to quickly fall apart. Faults finds Kef as the opening frag, and Bosco is just going to keep himself buried, as yet again the dream team of the Pulse and the Kaid is going to hold underneath. And we've already kind of mentioned this on the previous point as to why that makes it impossible to enter is when they've still got vertical. It's the same aspect here. You're going to have a couple of guns pointed at you from the sides. You know that there's going to be people, even if you're against any team, there's going to be people inside the cash room. But at this point, because they haven't cleared anything else, then there's going to be guns from so many other angles that you can at least start to work towards collapsing upon.
SSG, information being gathered by the Maestro cameras and the Pulse, of course, and here comes a quick jump out of him from Rampy, but he sees the man scurry off towards Garage, and, well, SSG. Look, Fluke, what can we really say? It's just SSG putting up the numbers, and at Ferris, they are way too deep. They're in way too deep over their head.
It's the thing about the team is SSG have all their balances and their checks put in place. Alan's managed to find a frag down here against Fultz, who was swinging a bit wildly in this connector, but otherwise from this point they know exactly where he is. He's on 25 health and he still has 4 operators to get through, including a Pulse who's feeding information. The pre-fires come through the walls, and now there's 2 guns, one up, one down, but both pointing, well, directly at you, as yet again SSG bring themselves to the end of a very decisive round.
Oh boy. 7-0? Question mark?
Looking like it. I mean, the difference here for me is that SSG, I mean, obviously, it's always hard to compare one of these bigger teams that is on the biggest stage consistently versus a team that otherwise is in national stages and doing very well on those, but compared to the grandiose size that is Pro League, it's still a lot of difference. They're set up completely for all angles. They're not just thinking of the point as a box. They're not just thinking of the point as, this is a room, we've got to find a way into room. They're covering every single up, down, left, right. They have their rotations, and it's more than just that, because the map control for SSG, for me, whether Atheris have found their way in or not, has never been challenged.
Everything that Ferris have tried to do, it plays perfectly into the setup of SSG. You think about the multiple rounds that they had. They, on their church, they tried to push in and take control of mid-floor. Everything was set up for them. You look at their cache. They were set up for the garage hole, which is what Ferris wanted to go for. And even downstairs at Ferris, they were trying to focus their buck to get in below in towards stock and start ripping up the floor from below. We seen roamers down there. We seen the combination of the Pulse feeding that information. Fultz jumped out, get that free kill on the buck. You look at their gym. They set up the mirror window in towards looking Jacuzzi. Where did the push come in from Aferis? Oh, Jacuzzi. Everything that SSG set up, Aferis walked straight into it.
The thing is, it wasn't just a couple of them pushing Jacuzzi as well.
Oh no, it was the whole team.
It was the whole team. And that was the kind of ire I had with them previously, is you hit that mirror window, and mirror has, the different functionalities of a mirror. One is, you're being watched, and 2 is, am I being watched? The psychological aspect of, well, they have a complete beat and read on everything we're doing. We need to find out a way to get them out of there. Yes, there was 2 grenades thrown, and unfortunately not quite well enough to be able to push her back or get some control there, but at the same time, as we said, they got the opening frag on the man peeking from logistics side. All they had to do was rotate a man up there, throw a drone down, realize that they could apply a little bit of cross pressure, and that would have forced the mirror at least a bit further away from that hold. Suffers immediately. They're wasting no time in getting the Jacuzzi wall down. If there's anything you can compliment Atheris on, it's the sheer blind pace that they're attacking these points with, but this is when it stumbles, when they then all try to enter from the same door.
Yeah, open the breach and let's all look at the same angle for a minute. That's kind of the play style of Atheris at the moment. That Electroclaw doesn't hit Bosco, so he's probably absolutely buzzing that it hasn't hit him. Must be so happy. They've left main stairs uncovered, and now somebody from Atheris is on main stairs. C4 gets tossed out, but doesn't land anything. But here comes Finkenade from below. Should be able to get the man on main stairs, because I have a feeling that Jaeger knows exactly where the man is. Nade gets cooked, and, well, there's the dance away from Bosco. Wonder if Buck still has another one. He should do. But still, Bosco just waiting. Just waiting for it. Really not a lot happening now for Atheris. Yes, they have that control of main stairs, but as soon as they had it, it goes straight back in favor of SSG. The run-in from Thermite, which wasn't going to do anything, again, just falls short. That nade literally falls short. And now it's a 5v3 for SSG.
Just look at how much they're throwing against this mirror. And it kind of, as we said, you can take away from this and learn about this. And when you're watching it from this angle, you can see how funneled you are, because you don't just have to kind of get through one on that wall. You've then got others to get through. I like what Guicho is trying here and pushing around the opposite side, and does find Thinking Nade to get control of the central stairs, and instantly it's making SSG have to respond. The man coming from underneath is probably going to be his maker. Throws the drone to be covered by a teammate who is dead, and that should feed it. But if SSG push at a pinch of time, this could be the end of Guicho. Bosco finds one wide swinging, but there is Guicho to find a double, and is pushed all the way around to the back of the mirror. Gets the mirror down as well, found their way into point, and there is suddenly a 2 versus 1 with the knife being the kill, and it's now just down to Faults on the main stairs. Why did they peek aggressively against him?
Faults, 1v2. Can he clutch up? Going for the long rotation all the way over towards the cache. Diffuser will be planted by the Thatcher in towards the bed, it seems to be, but that is gave Faults the ultimate opening. He sees it, he takes it. Oh, Ferris! They've snuck away with the round.
I'm happy for them. It was good aggression. So much of that relies on Guicho, who managed to pull them through that, and they pull around on the turn of their half, not making this the complete stomp, well, then it was kind of setting itself up to be. And that was born from splitting the push. SSG, in a weird way, kind of trusted it, and you could see that Faults was trying to collapse from range and pull himself back against the man coming up central stairs, but fair play. The single player pushed right on through.
If you know somebody's on main stairs, why do you just let them walk into logistics? Everybody should be jumping at that opportunity. It's, you know, it's a bloody 5v2, and you're letting that slip.
Well, I guess all credit to them as they start in gym. That's a bit of a peculiar first point for me. They're bringing all the makings of that standard hold that we talked about before. Electrifying Takuzi, setting the castles up across the gym, and there's the shield to protect the bandits a little bit longer, and they're probably going to throw a Jaeger above the drone hole as well. Expect something that is, said, going to be aggressive, but there's no Maverick on the team of SSG, so they're going to have to Thatcher this. They're going to have to be a bit tricky with this. I assume it'll be a pretty coordinated takedown of this point, but I guess who knows what tricks Atheris have up their sleeve.
So now the hard part begins for Atheris, because you look at the bans. SSG, they have hard breaches. Both of them open Habana and Thermite, which is off the beaten track of typically how Clubhouse is played, and nearly everybody kind of bans at least one hard breaching operator if they have the opportunity to. And SSG, a pretty standard lineup, kind of what we expect from the current meta, where you have the double hard breach, you have the soft destruction with Buck, and the distant soft destruction with Sophia. And Thatcher, as we know, is just been such a universal operator that's got to an extent where he gets banned quite frequently as well.
Well, wasting no time, pushing across the top side. Faults getting control of Oil Pit and making sure no one pops in. And again, this is something that is kind of exemplified on what we kind of wanted from Atheris. This split map control. They're formulaically making and breaking their way across this floor to make sure that if Atheris do try some sort of form of rotate, it will either be audible or it will be countered by just utility usage. And now it makes them a bit more confident to start breaking across this side, as Faults yet again opens up the frags yet again against Kef, who has been the most dropped as the opening frag so far. He's taken the crown of Canadian.
Not a good crown to have, though, is it? Crown of Thorns?
Yeah, it's not a nice crown. Guicho is holding on inside logistics to try and keep control, with Castle just pre-firing angles, but otherwise, again, SSG are just, again, they're pulling themselves back out. They're rotating and moving.
SSG, they're always keeping Atheris on their toes, because right now, if you're Atheris, you're thinking it's going to be a full cash room side. They have sent the single Thermite over to open up that wall. And as you can see, Alan, I was about to say, he's nowhere near it, but he has just came back, because it feels as if he has a suspicion that there could be somebody lurking ready to get the wall open from him. They have the classic bandit set up, and have the castle barricades to kind of block off the visions, but I kind of feel SSG are still going to go in hard with the cash room side. They open up logistics hatch so they can drop in their buck, and as we know, that C8 in close range can be oh so deadly. Canadian now, just waiting for the right moment to try and go for that Thermite charge, and Bandit's still just waiting for it. There pops one out, but False, I think, is probably going to try and get a free kill here. Still has one more lifeline available. We'll send that through, but there's the shield. That counteracts, of course, against that Sophia. Still just waiting for it. Another Thatcher now being cooked over, and this is a hefty process for SSG.
Yeah, if they had one more charge in that Zephyr, they could have got it. The man, covered by the smoke, actually saved his life as Rampy went to check the swing, but doesn't see him on the return, and there is Rampy taking out the equation. Now they're trying to find a way in through this window, do find the smoker aggressively peeks it, which is a curious decision, but Bosco in the meantime has dropped Logistic and started aggressively pushing from the other side. At this point, SSG have to get feet in the ground, and another one falls at the same doorway as the Buck, and now it is suddenly 1 against 3 as SSG start to get the diffuser down. Alan Durf is hidden behind a shield, and unfortunately SSG are in every corner possible. 6-1. They put themselves onto match point. Atheris, you found 1 against them. Can you repeat the magic a second time?
I can answer that. No. SSG just have this game in the back pocket. This is done. I don't see a Ferris pulling back, not even this next round. I just think the SSG just shown that they have the coordination to make those executes, because let's be honest, the Ferris one that they did win was down to one guy going rampant, which, yes, can win your team's rounds, but it's never the nicest way. You talk to any coach, and they look at their team, they love the rounds where everybody does something, not just one standout player. And that round kind of shown SSG, they have multiple guys who can coordinate and can execute onto the site. You know, you had the drop in from Abana, the push in from Sophia. Little bit maybe misdroning, which I think kind of what SSG lacked overall, especially the final drone in towards the bomb site. But they were more focused on getting open the wall. There was 3 guys there, taken out of action, trying to open up the wall.
Well, we're heading down to Church now as their potential final hold. Maybe going to have the solidity of the framework on their side this time, and maybe SSG is what they expected the first time round. They obviously have the double hard destruct, which is useful on pretty much every single point against this. They've got the Thatcher to deal with Kaids, and they have the Sledge to cause as many nightmares as possible in the ground above, which was a problem that we saw Atheris not do. They brought the Buck and then didn't actually really utilize him.
Need to bring the operators that you feel you can utilize, and if they're bringing the Buck and they're not using the skeleton key, pick a different op. No point. Sledge on the Rampy. I'm guessing that probably they're going to try and execute in towards dirt. You know, they have the kind of reinforcement destructors with the Habana and the Thermite to utilize, and you can kind of waste the Thermite charge if you want to, opening up dirt. And I love the way I called him the Rampy. Like, he's kind of like the Rampy model 0534.
The unstoppable Rampy.
Not cyborg, just robot.
Just robot.
Yeah.
Is a robot better or worse than a cyborg?
You tell me.
I think that's a debate for a Twitter poll or Reddit. I'm not getting involved in that weight between EU and NA yet again. Start to find they'll close down now. SSG droning ahead of their push and finding themselves again with no real pressure. Skemzy is playing a bit above around this garage storage side, but isn't far away to rotate. Fultz is just round the corner, gets hit by the Legion and decides to swing into it, and rightfully so, Legion's going to pre-fire backwards and just backpedal as quickly as he can into point. Not worth taking the fight. They've castled off the oil pit side to try and, I guess, keep a semblance of control, and they're really turtling down inside here. The slitted reinforced wall is going to be their angle to try and pop up and find anyone by surprise, and I guess hope that SSG get a little bit too aggressive, but they've also castled off Moto, which just hands that drop to them.
I hate that. Castle and basement makes no sense to me. You've gave SSG the go-ahead to drop in the Moto with no consequences if they go for it. It just makes no sense. They have that shield being placed to try and cover main stairs. That can be opened up by Rampy and easily fragged onto, and even an A can be tossed in, of course. And there's Kaid, who's having a bit of a tough time now around, but equally so is the Sledge. Know exactly where he is. One nade to try and push him into a corner that he knows he's looking towards, and constant ping as well, but still, Rampy, he hasn't killed him yet. There we go, finally SMG-11 marks the man, and well, SSG, they're a lot lit up, but still in their control.
Well, with that hatch open, you can see all of Atheros falling back towards that church side. They can't really contest that, and with that soft, Rampy is on a rampage as he starts digging all the way through the dirt tunnel to see if he can find any more bodies. Hit by a soft reinforce and is ready to just hold the angle and wait, but will know that someone is on the other side and times the pre-fire perfectly, but might not fully see where the Jaeger crawled off to. Thinking Nade is there to pick up the pair as it's down to Guicho holding in point, and now it is down to nobody. SSG with a flawless round and an almost flawless map and an almost flawless clubhouse put themselves in pretty good stead to move on to the next.
Yep, SSG, they tear through the Mexican side, and the only thing that you'd probably be disappointed about with your SSG is that you gave them a round. But anywho, that's going to be us done for map 1. Stay tuned as map 2 is coming right up.
Absolutely stunning! They are the champions! Predict the outcome, win the game. Get live coverage and schedules for your favorite tournaments. Analyze, predict, and vote to gain points. Compete with other esports fans and climb the leaderboards. Strafe, everything esports. Download now on iOS and Android.